Welcome to episode 7 of Sora is Bad, where we go through the recents page on Sora to look at the recent generations that people have come up with, or rather Sora has come up with. We're going to look at the prompts, see what it does right, see what it does wrong, and hopefully have some laughs along the way. So almost immediately, I found a couple things that caught my eye. And for video number 1, let's take a look at this car. I'm going to pause it real quick. A red sports car speeding on a highway during sunset. So initially it looks okay. It still looks kind of like video game graphics, but it's a nice scene, nice lighting. It's on a road, so it all makes sense. As soon as we start to play though, we run into a very common issue right there. We're starting looking at the rear of the car as we come around to the side. Another rear of the car. That's unusual, and now it's going backwards down the road. And this is kind of funny because it reminds me of a project I saw somebody do online where they had two back ends of a car that they actually welded together. That's almost what this is like. So, although it looks okay at first, it quickly falls apart as soon as the camera kind of orbits around, and this wouldn't really be a usable clip. So, bummer for number 1. For number 2, let's take a look at this. The prompt is kind of long, but basically it's supposed to be a Minnesota female soccer mom having her hair bleached in her kitchen. It's supposed to look like a documentary film, all that sort of stuff. So it gets a lot of stuff right off the bat. This looks like a plausible scene. There's some stuff going into the hair. I could see that being some bleach. But another thing that we often see with people and movement is I'm just going to go slowly at first, and then we can watch the whole thing at normal speed. So far so good, other than there's no residue on these hands, but I'll give that a pass. The main thing that caught my eye was right here. Her head keeps turning around, and all of a sudden her ear kind of warps to where her nose was. So let's watch this in real time. It's like one of those dolls where the head just spins around all the way. So yeah, this is another example where the first few seconds of this clip might work pretty well, and then they would just cut it right there before it goes off the rails. But as an entire usable clip, this 5 seconds, nope, that's a no-go. Before we get to number 3, let's take a look at this because this actually looks surprisingly good. Now I know that Sora is capable of some really impressive outputs. I've seen lots of examples, and even before it was released, we knew that it was capable of some really high-end video. But the fact of the matter is you would be lucky to get 1 out of 10 good generations. This is one of those, I think. So it is an advanced cyberpunk trooper carefully patrolling a wet remote jungle. Their weaponry resembles standard Special Forces equipment with a laser sight loosely visible through the rain. So I could see this being an advanced cyberpunk trooper. Cool how it has kind of some Japanese looking characters on there. The gun looks plausible, for what they want. And even the movement, I can see some rain falling through. There's a little bit of movement on these leaves from the wind. The lighting is all good and uniform. One place it might fall short just a tiny bit is just in some of the texturing on the helmet and on the arm. But overall, this is a really impressive generation, I think. For number 4, let's check this out real quick. And I think this is going to be another example where some parts are kind of okay, but overall there are things that are just really shouldn't be happening. So the prompt is close-up of a woman in the kitchen mixing a cake batter and looking at her cell phone with children playing in the background. So we have what looks like a woman that could plausibly be some cake batter. She's not using that spoon quite right, but usually I'll let that slide a little bit, except for when we get to this point and that spoon just disappears. It just poof into thin air. Now she's kind of looking at a phone over that bowl. We can see it on the counter there, but it doesn't actually look like she's focusing on it or even that the phone is on necessarily. So that's kind of a miss. We can kind of see these two kids, maybe one in the door, one out of the door. I guess they could be playing, but for the prompt, it misses on a few key areas. Overall, the image quality is decent, the lighting is decent, all that stuff. But just the movement, the using of the tool, and what is that going on at the end there? So she the spoon disappears, she reaches down and then has 2 left arms right there, unless that's somebody else's. But this arm is definitely attached. There's her shoulder, her elbow, and her hand, and as that goes through the frame, out pops from the shadow of the bowl another arm that is then attached to her body. There's her shoulder, there's her elbow, there's her other hand. So we have more examples of morphing humans. Why not, right? On to number 5. Now it is kind of interesting on the recents page, oftentimes you can see about how many times somebody tried to get something generated. So we just watched this one and I happened to see this from the same user, a very similar scene. The prompt is the same, so now we have 2 cell phones on the counter. That's where the shot starts. She's still mixing some cake batter in. At first it almost looks like a spoon or a spatula, then it goes to a spoon that would like drain the liquid out, then kind of back into more of a spatula looking thing, back into the spoon. She goes up to her face. Now surprisingly, she doesn't have any additional limbs growing out this time. We can see those kids in the background and it almost looks like one is sitting in the window and maybe those 2 are outside of the window. It's kind of unusual, and they're all just kind of standing there. There's no real movement with the kids. They're just kind of sitting there. So again, it has the subject matter. It has cell phone. It has what could be cake batter. It has the woman, and it has the kids. But what's actually happening, it's not quite there. So we'll count that as 5.5, and let's look for number 6. Well, I just found one. This doesn't count as number 6. I'm just going to do a react. Hey. All right, this looks like something, and it's kind of funny. Before I started recording this episode, I actually thought maybe I'll do a half and half episode, half, good generations and half not so great generations. This one is borderline amazing. It's not perfect at all, but let's just watch this. I could see that being a short little clip in a movie or something like that. Again, it's not perfect. There is some issue with the can, like arms kind of coming out of nothingness. Right there, there's a hand. Oh, let me pause it. Like down here, there's a hand holding that. Let's call it a beer. And then another hand right here, and then a third hand up top. So 2 hands. We still have that third hand down there. And as it goes on, that can kind of becomes the other can. So again, it's not a perfect generation, but overall, I'm actually kind of impressed with this one. For number 7, let's take a quick look at this because I haven't really seen other close-ups of scrolling generated by Sora yet, and not too surprisingly, it doesn't quite get it. The idea is there, the stuff on the screen is kind of garbled, that's not too surprising, but the scrolling doesn't really match what the thumb is doing. So another case where it has the general idea, it has a hand holding the phone, that all looks plausible, the phone looks good other than what's on the screen, but the thumb and the movement doesn't quite work out. So that's a bummer. I don't even know if I can show this one, but for number 8, let's just see what they wanted, because it didn't turn out right. A 5-year-old girl riding on her father's neck is playing like crazy. So that's fine. That's an okay prompt. You would think like, piggyback her on the shoulders or something. This did not turn out right. That's all I'm gonna say in critique. That shouldn't be on here. Sticking with the sort of half good, half bad thought, this is actually a pretty decent scene of this person riding this bike. Again, it's not perfect, but it's the best I've seen Sora do. It does make me wonder, are they upgrading any of this model in the background, now that it's launched and they're getting feedback? I do wonder if they're improving it, day by day or periodically. Who knows, but it's at least a possibility. I've seen more good generations today than I have filming any of these previous episodes. For video number 9, let's see what's supposed to be going on right here. It looks like a pretty short prompt overall. A couple dances and jumps on a bed in an old Berlin apartment. So, pretty simple prompt. We have a bed, we have a couple people here, and I could see that being an apartment in Berlin. The problem is, well, first of all, look at their faces. That is not a high quality rendition of a person's face. The issue that caught my eye is, okay, they're on the bed, they twirl around, there's all sorts of funkiness going on that we've come to expect, and then all of a sudden, whoa, 3 people. That was not in the agreement, and then they jump off the bed, and that dude in that blazer, that comes off, and boom, woman. a guy again, and then they're just kind of skipping around. Oh, one of them disappears. It goes from 3 down to 2, and then they're jumping and turning into more people and morphing. Maybe it's like a multi-dimensional thing. I don't even know. That was a big old mess of craziness. It's a pretty fun video, but yeah, you're not really using that in the way it was prompted to be used. You might use it in some sort of a fever dream video. I don't know. For video number 10, let's take a look at what's supposed to be going on here. This prompt is, let a man walk on the streets of an old city in Istanbul, holding a notebook in his right hand and trying to install Windows operating system on it, inserting the flash memory in his left hand into the notebook. Something along those lines. That was a Google translation. So I could see this being, an alleyway or something in a big city. There is a laptop, a notebook. I guess that's a USB thing, but right here I happen to pause it. Let's take a look at that ankle. Yee, that's rough. So 2 people are holding it for some reason. There's nothing on the screen. He's not really doing anything useful with this hand. Like, they're not typing anything. They're not using the mouse. It's not a touch screen or anything. They're just kind of awkwardly walking down this alleyway, holding onto this laptop between the 2 men. And that's it. So we see it time and time again. It has the subject matter. It kind of knows what's going on. Actually, one other thing I just noticed. Look how jerky all of the movement is for these people in the background. I'm just going to play at normal speed. That would not be usable in any sort of professional fashion if you're putting this in a commercial or even a good YouTube. I mean, I'm putting it in one, but hey, whatever. So again, it has the subject matter, just everything else falls apart after that. And even though that was number 10, let's take a look at this one. Hey, maybe we could end on a high note. A hybrid between a worm and a cat sitting very happily on comfy couch. It did a shockingly good job making a cat-worm hybrid. I mean, I'd think of it more like a snake or something like that. I haven't seen good examples of it being able to do hybrid things like that in the past, but this one, it actually did all right. There's hope for Sora after all. So that will be our 10 plus videos for this episode. This was episode number 7. Join us again for number 8 coming soon. And thanks for watching.